Boom! We
Nice.
have started. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. This is Samuel Davis III, and I am with the guys. We still haven't got a formal name to this podcast here, but I am with my friends here, Gordon and Benji, and we are here with another subject today. We're going to start talking about in just a few moments on um, we're trying to enlighten each other through our conversations. We're trying to have these conversations that give us the ability to think about what's going on in our minds, and in hope that what we learn from each other will inspire us to improve upon our social standing in life or our position. And that's what this conversations are all about. And today's subject matter we got it came from Benji today. Today's subject matter that we had was going to be our topic. What higher powers do you call on? Oh, excuse me. Let me take that back. That was last week. I don't know how I got that in there. Let me take that back and please forgive me. It is this week. What does a life of purpose mean to you? What does a life of purpose mean to you? And as we have done before last time, we'll start with me because it really hit me hard when you mentioned that. Immediately after that subject matter came up, the first thing I thought about that brought me immediately to my mindset was my time first off in the military. I had left from home at 18, went into the Air Force, and that was a big commitment for me. So when you talk about a life of purpose, that was a commitment to go and serve my country. That was big. I didn't think I was going to do it. I was raised around a bunch of Marines, and I had always heard talks about don't join the Marine Corps from a lot of Marines, and decided to go Air Force. So that's why I went and left the house and went Air Force. My father didn't care for that too much, being that he was a third year retired Marine, but I did what I did. And I just was speaking with this yesterday with Gordon yesterday. They jokingly used to refer to me as Captain America because I really took into what I was doing. I was away from home for the first time, and I'm wearing his uniform, and I'm out and serving the country. And I was up. Matter of fact, I was actually in Keith Air Force Base, Mississippi, and it was right about the time when the space shuttle blew up. That was 1985. So there was a lot of how do you say this? A lot of feeling of being a part of America and a part of our country and the culture, what was going on. With the we had a parade. We had a parade, not necessarily in honor of the loss, but just in remembrance and commemoration of those who did lose their lives. And it one of those things that started me in my mindset on, wow, this thing is bigger than me in just this uniform. These are all these other people. We're all here gathered together, and I just started seeing more and more of me being a part of the bigger whole from that point on. And it was a kind of the start of things for me. I'll say that much. Um, I also serving in the Department of Justice for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I even more so got used to my community, and that's when after I got out of the military. This is what I considered serving my communities because that's pretty much what you do with the Bureau of Prisons. Is you make sure we keep all those individuals who shouldn't be in communities secured and away. So as I was taking some notes down about things, I will say ultimately what it was for me was what does a life of purpose mean to me? And the one thing that I really got that I can almost say right off the bat is that I felt that I believed that wherever I went, I was going to make a difference. And that was big for me because serving in the military, going to these different countries, visiting people, seeing other cultures and seeing other ethnicities, and seeing that it's not just me. It's not just about me and my world. That there are other things that we go out and do and help in those communities that we did that I visited in those other countries, and I got to see a whole other side. I used to jokingly say, some guys that when they got in the military, I would. I would think to me, if you were on the East Coast, they should transfer you somewhere to the West Coast, so you get a chance to see what's going on that side. And if you're on the West Coast, send somebody down south. Let them see what it's living down south. See what it's like living down south compared to California. Or if you're up in the Northeast, send them down to Texas. Let them see what's happening when you get meet a couple of good old boys and see how conversations go when you go up there and you meet those other different individuals. Because life will hit you in a whole different way, and you start seeing things. Also, the other thing that got me the most was when you're working. Um, I went on different courses, as I mentioned before, and a lot of those courses, when you start beginning to work on yourself, you start recognizing and realizing that again, it's bigger than me, and that whole bigger than me thing turns into I'm actually here to help other individuals, and how I personally feel I want to help other individuals is based upon what I do. I use myself as an example. I use myself as a person that when someone says, "Hey, um, I used to be embarrassed about it. I used to feel bad for the people that talked to me and say it to me initially, where they would go, "Hey, you know what? You're not like those other guys." And I was kind of feel like, well, what does that mean? How does how does that go about meaning anything? We got one more guy coming in here. We're gonna got Robin jumping in here. So let me bring him in. So I would ask myself when that would come on, what does that mean when someone says that to me? And that was what I would consider it a. That's when I considered it a recognize that there have been people who've never seen me act in those ways, or necessarily not necessarily me, but possibly another black person do certain things, come out and help, be friendly, or even just befriend another individual. Just speaking and taking that moment out of that day and just saying, hey, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Just talking to an individual. Sometimes it's that's all that a person really wants. This is just to hear you speak to a person, and they already have a preconceived notion of who you are, what I am, or what they think about me as a Black American. But when you sit back there and you have a conversation with someone, and they're curious, and you start having a great conversation, and things like you get a situation like this one right here with us, and you find out different viewpoints and different things about each other, and that's what you want. You want people to sit back there and go, hey, this guy told me a totally different side of something that I've never even seen before. I've never had conversations with individuals like this. I've never had the ability to talk with a black guy. There was a course that I was on one time, and I'll never forget this. This guy, we were doing an exercise together, and right as we were finishing exercise, he was tearing up. And usually I don't want to ask him to get into his business, but I was really curious as far as what we were calling it, just what we call serious humor, where you listening to a person one on one and just let them vent and you're just listening. And as he started talking, he said, my brother was killed by a black guy, and I never thought I'd ever look in a black guy's face again. And I thought I definitely would never speak to a black guy. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Going back to the question, what does a life of purpose mean to you? That's what it means to me. Being able to go out there and help somebody get through something, and first and foremost, without no intention on doing it, but just being there and being a conduit for whatever spirit is raised that we bring up in our conversation that we do every day. So my answer to that question is, what does a life of purpose mean to you? It means being able to go out, helping other individuals, and it's not a thing where I'm holding anything back. I feel comfortable in doing it. I don't feel like I'm being coerced to do it. It's coming from me naturally, and when you see me, you kind of like, hey, that guy, I like that. I don't know what it is about this guy, but his energy is right, and energy is a big thing. Energy is a very big thing for me. So that's kind of where I am on that. And I hope that answers the question today for what does a life of purpose mean to you for me. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
I can add on to that. And when I asked that question, it was really about me trying to find the answers to that question for me. What is it like for me personally, right? So, I've been able to do what I do, just provide for families and people, multiple people, multiple families, all my life. That's pretty much what I do. But when I was actually working in Houston, there was a colleague that worked with me. His name is Charlie. Charlie's a pretty modest guy, from an IT guy. He's pretty middle of the road, not completely incompetent, not completely successful, and that's how I feel it. But he's really, really, really nice. But what he told me, what he does with his income blew my mind. Charlie came from China, so he support um, a couple of family there. You buy them, essentials, food, things like that, clothing and school and things like that. But on top of that, he does fundraising for other children in in his region, as well as adult and things like that. Here he is, kind of like middle of the road IT success guy, yet he got a beautiful home, beautiful wife, be a part of a community. He invited me down to Atlanta to go to the fundraising, and it's not like a you know small fundraising. We're talking like full ballroom fundraising. It's like I'm like movie star kind of people that was there. You're like, Charlie, who are you? You know, and I thought, I know that I accomplished a lot, but adding on to what Samuel's saying, it's a lot bigger than me. It's a lot bigger than just taking care of the fundamental of my family or my extended family or my exes and things like that. It's a lot more beyond that. And it's beyond the money, and because it's really more than just the money. They actually goes to community, ask for assistance from corporate America, other elite 1%er to show up not just for the money, but show up there with the emotion, the feeling, and just be available for for these children as well as the community in China where he come from. So to me, that was really really huge. And the funny thing, the irony of all this, I'm like, I was just like so kind of like upset with that because he really is a good guy. I'm like, I thought I was a good guy, but I'm like, there's a level of good guy out there. I'm like, man, I'm like, okay, but it's not so much that it's like, you know what, I have to step up a little further than that. I have to step up into the role that I'm supposed to be because I have the capacity for it. And Samuel knows this when we were in the workshop. Sometimes I just hold back, and that was just something that I had to work through, and it's part of I got to go through. And these are things that being in life of purpose is, and to really fully shine the gift that was given to me. Not to dim what was given to me, and that's something that I've been working through during the workshop with Samuel and a lot of people. But ultimately, the answer to the question is to be fully engaged in life, to be fully engaged and participate fully, and and not just my my culture, but every culture. I grew up military too, so I get to travel, be with different, culture as well too. So I think that's a huge benefit to see the difference in people, cultural and style, and also fact. There's different in all of us, but there's also the uniqueness and beauty in all of us at the same time. Okay.
Okay, okay. Well, that'll work, Benji. That whole thing about being a good guy. Sometimes, yeah, your level of good guy is not the same as other people's good guys. Just like a level of cleanliness. I think Shin and I talked about this years ago. You first move on someone and you get your first girlfriend or your wife, you move in together, and the first time you're together, all of a sudden I start recognizing, your level of cleanliness might not be the same level of cleanliness that I had, or I might have to up my game. And it's one of those things. Always working on yourself makes you see other things in others, and you see about yourself as well too. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, Mr. Gordon Chavez, tell us what's going on with you. What you think about this question?
Hey, hey. I I really love this question. I think that I think that the quality of life that we have is a direct reflection of the value that we provide. I think so. I really like that both of you talked about, um, contributing either to society, to community, you know, to a diverse group of people, not just your own culture. I really love all of that because I feel that that's really where it is. It's like you as an American, I feel like we're pushed to be, you know, financially driven, professionally driven, to succeed and to grow and to climb that ladder, whatever that means, right? But I think that what it really comes down to is are the things that we're doing fulfilling, or are we just, living a scenario that we feel that we're supposed to live, I guess. I don't know. And so, also, Sam, you said, or at least what I heard you say, was that it's all relative, right? And so one person's standard might be here, and another person's standard might be over here, and so we can't necessarily judge, uh, how well we're doing at something based on somebody else's standards. We have to really, I think we have to just compare ourselves to ourselves, right? We have to say,
Mm.
yesterday, this is what I did, this is what I was able to accomplish. Maybe even a year ago today, this is where I was, this is what I was able to accomplish, and now this is where I am, and this is what I'm able to do. And in line with what you guys are saying, this is how much I'm able to contribute to society, to my community, to my family, to my extended family, in my neighborhood, wherever, right? And I think that with also a level of self-awareness that says, that maybe a level of self-awareness and a level of self-confidence that says, even though I'm doing these things that don't necessarily translate into, say, income, financial prosperity, or professional growth, I'm really making a difference in people's lives. And I think that will be taken care of if that's what we truly do, and if we truly believe it too, because the narrative that's being told is a power. It's I wanted to say it's a powerful. I don't know if it's a powerful narrative, or it's just so. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. It's just so widespread that you're supposed to do these things. You talk about the old idea of the American dream, or you talk about, the generations, maybe my generation and prior. It was all about, finding getting an education or a degree, getting a job or a career, working there for 30, 40 years, and then retiring, maybe buying a boat and going fishing every day or something like that, right? Maybe having your house paid off so that you don't need the same amount of income or whatever. And I think these days, my kids and even younger are saying, you know what, that's not good enough for me. That I don't have to live that life that everybody says you're supposed to live. And they're doing things, they're following their heart, I think. And so I think that if you're going to live a life of purpose, or a purpose driven life, then you have to have some level of self-awareness, some level of confidence that these things you want to do, these things that your heart says you should do, are actually good things, even if maybe they don't contribute to your 401k, or to whatever the case, financially speaking. And so if you can do that and find happiness there, it doesn't always have to relate to money, but I think in general, it will come back to you, and you will be taken care of, food, clothing, shelter, whatever it might be. I don't know how that works, but I feel like that's what it is. You provide value and you get value. So hopefully that made sense.
Mm. That makes sense. I don't know if Robin, I don't know if you had a comment or you wanted to get in on this. I don't know if you just wanted to look in, but
Yeah,
I know we.
I can't stay long, but I will make a comment, particularly. I'll start with addressing the last thing that was talked about was Gordon, talking about following your heart. I could not disagree with him more.
Mm.
I have spent, I'm in my 60s, and I have spent my whole life Uh, uh, and if you were to ask me, what is your biggest regret in life? I would tell you that my biggest regret in life is to have constantly following my heart.
Hmm.
It has led me astray. My heart is not to be trusted. There's been many times when my heart has told me to do completely the wrong thing. Go after some girl, be a racist, be prejudiced, be mean, be an asshole. Don't worry about making money. Just do what your heart desires and the money will follow. Guess what? It didn't. And I'm calling Gordon like, hey, you who followed money, save me. Benji, help me. I wasted my whole life following my fucking heart. And my heart said, hey, don't worry about it. Go to the party. So I think that I follow along with what Socrates said. If passion rules your life, let reason hold the reins. And let your brain and your rationale, like, hey, so when my parents were from the hippie generation. They grew up in that idea that you have to always, they were raised to make money, make a living, get a retirement, get the boat, get all that, everything that was described. When they started raising me, they had Gordon's mentality. They said, I don't want that for my child. I want my child to be a free spirit, be free. And so they said, it's good if you make money, but don't worry about that so much. And I, being a child, I listened to the easier road. I don't, and so I made all the mistakes, every financial mistake you could think of. I made it more than once, and I'm still making it now. I still don't have a 401k, even though it's offered by my company. And you guys are like, what? What? Free money? You're leaving it on the table? What are you, nuts? And I'm like, yeah, I'm nuts. I'm following my heart. So no, I don't agree with that. But that being said, everything else you folks have been saying, there is a common denominator that I agree with very wholeheartedly, and that is one thing because Sam, you gave some personal story about opening the eyes of a man who might have been prejudiced, and Benji, you had a story about this guy who's doing all kinds of good things. And, Gordon, you talked about people being, decent and all that. In the end, when we talk about a purpose, I don't really want to come up with anything new. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. This question has been hashed out by extremely wise men, and those discussions and those dialogues have been thoroughly vetted by the wise men of the world for literally thousands of years, right? And it was first proposed it's called the Challenge of Thrasymachus. It was proposed in the Dialogues of Plato. It was discussed and well hashed out by Socrates. And he says, well, if you want to know what your life's purpose is, don't think about what you're doing. Think about what if you didn't do that? What would everything else be like? For example, you talk about helping people. What if I became a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon and I saved a life almost every day? I go into work, I do surgery, I save somebody's life, right? I save on the order of maybe 200 to 300 lives a year. And I'm a surgeon for 20 years. I save thousands of lives. But I go home and I beat my spouse and I abuse my children and I molest other people. So you could easily say, hey, you saved, really, literally saved the lives of thousands of people. But you're an asshole. And if God exists, he'd send you to hell. Because without that compassion, without that goodness, without that part of you, that it doesn't matter what you do. You could be the world's greatest philanthropist. I live in Silicon Valley. I'm around billionaires all the time. It's my job to work with them, right next to them. I'm their guard. I see the behind the scenes. Some of them are donating millions of dollars and they're assholes. And some of them are not donating billions of dollars and they're not such bad people. So the one thing without which, instead of saying, what do, you say, what is the one thing without which everything else you did would be canceled out, right? What would that be? And ultimately, both, all three of you gentlemen have hit the nail right on the head. And that's basically to be a good person with caring, compassion, consideration, and kindness to your fellow man. Because in the end, Socrates says that's the one thing that you can do better than anything else. And to illustrate that, I can sit there and say, okay, on my counter, I've got an object. That object is a very good paperweight. It's called a clock, but I use it to hold down paper. What's its purpose? Its purpose is to tell time. It happens to also be a good paperweight, but its purpose is to be a timekeeper, a time teller, right? I also, in my driveway, I've got another clock. It's on wheels. It keeps me warm in the winter and cool in the summer. It's called a car. It's not keeping me warm and cool. The air conditioner is not its purpose, nor is the clock inside its purpose. It also plays music pretty damn well. That's not its purpose. Its purpose is to be a transportation device, right? And so why do we say the car's purpose is to be a transportation and the clock's purpose is to be for telling time? And the reason is because those are the things that those objects do better than anything else, and no one else can do it better. I cannot be a black spokesman any better than Sam. I know a lot about the black community. I've lived among the black community. I've lived around black people more than even some black people, like some black teenager. He ain't been around black people as long as I have been. But still, I can't do the job as well as him, right? I'm not built for it. And so when we look for our life's purpose, the first thing you want to look at is like, well, what is the one thing that if you didn't do it, that everything else you did would be discounted, right? If God exists, he'd say, great, you saved thousands of people, Dr. So-and-so, but you're also a child molester. You're still going to hell, right? Right? I don't care how many people you save, right? And 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 the clock says, hey, I'm a great paperweight. But yeah, but the you're not plugged in and the clock's broken, so you're not a good clock. Yeah, but I'm a great paperweight. I hold down all these papers. Yeah, but you're not telling time correctly, right? You're off. You're only right twice a day. So, when you think in terms of that, I just think about, well, what if I didn't do it? What is the one thing that if I didn't do that nothing else in my life would matter? And I think the answer the answer to that for every single one of us is the same. Don't be an asshole. Be a good person, like fundamentally good, with caring, compassion, kindness, and consideration for all mankind and for every living creature that's around you, whether they be cats, dogs, don't eat anything unless you're hungry, and what have you. In fact, try to be a vegetarian if you can. Good luck with that for me, but.
That point of view, when it's almost so dismal having it on how it is, you can be and help a lot. I think in Morton, that each one for me. And I'll say this, to prove in and you them. You have an influence to them what have a second in charge helps you whole thing out. The world is know this. You know that in our own thing, but world said. I think it's important. I think it's important to even be doing some life that get some more that and pushing out continue to proliferate by Gordon B. Mitchell's son. What at a curriculum, and that's for your that your son took that out there and that
Hey Sam, I think your sound is breaking up.
oh is it? I'm sorry. Let me see. I got this on now. Clearly
No, it's still breaking up.
guys. Number 2.
Gordon, can you hear me?
I hear you, Benji. You hear me clearly?
Yeah, you and I, yeah.
Yeah, Sam. I'm not sure if it's your mic or your bandwidth, or not sure.
Can you hear me now? How's that?
Much,
Any
much,
better?
much better.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I tried to get easy and use my earbuds, but doesn't work. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm sorry about that. Forgive me.
No.
No problem.
No,
Anybody?
we get the feedback. So, so yeah. The
Go ahead.
the one thing about that is this is back to the Charlie story. It's not so much competing with Charlie. It's like because I did not completely fully engage in life, right? Yeah. And that was the thing. I did not give my best. That was something that I felt I could do much better with that. You know, being also be cognizant of how I spend finances instead of being a life of indulgent, right? Things like that. That was more of that purpose. And I'll address the 401k. I don't have a 401k. I don't do saving. Most people like me don't. We grow money. You know, we use money to grow money. We believe money is an energy and it should be continually cycle. So that is my thing. And I'm a top 3%er. And so I'm different than that. Now my best friend, he's a saver, right? He save. And I think you just gotta find what worked for you. What is for you to be, you know? And that's the thing. I follow my heart exclusively. I live with my heart. And so everything to do is about my heart and my vibration. That's really what I've been doing. Yeah. And I feel that it worked out much better than in my head. On that note, next to you, Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had a bad relationship with money for a good while, right? I had a mentality that said that those that had money, had to step on somebody to get it, had to do something wrong to get it. Like there is no innocent money, right? And you've heard all the phrase of money is the root of all evil and all of that stuff. And so I was kind of like in that. I was at a point one time where prior and right around 2008, where I was actually starting to want to take courses on how to be, I think it's called like a white hat hacker, to try to be part of the whole anonymous movement and try to occupy Wall Street and all of, because I had a very negative outlook on money, and I thought those that have it are taking advantage of the rest of the world. Those that have it, are controlling what's going on and all. And I had to really turn that around, because it really wasn't serving me, right? It wasn't leading to a happy life every day, right? Regardless of whether I believed it or not. And so I had to turn that around for me. I had to turn that around for my wife and my son at the time, just because it wasn't doing anything good for me to be part of that, and to think that way and to see the world that way. And I finally got to the point where I told myself that in general, I just have to have a positive outlook on life. And I have to, and I talked about it before where I made a switch from being reactive to proactive, right? And so before I was, or I could almost say that I was always following my heart, always following my heart, except that um, prior to making that switch, I was following my heart, but only when I believed it was things that I could actually accomplish. So if I ever thought about, financial growth or financial stability or whatever the case, I didn't necessarily believe that it was for me, and so I didn't necessarily follow it, even though I wanted it, right? But I guess I think we all do the things that we really want to do, but there has to be some level of belief in there. Otherwise, we're just not going to invest time, energy, and resources into something we don't truly believe that we can accomplish or that we can acquire, whatever. I'll give you an example. Like when I first met my wife, she was saving up to buy a car. She was not legally documented to live in this country. She did not have a driver's license. She didn't even know how to drive a car. But it was so important to her that she saved up enough money. She bought a car and she actually drove it the first day. It didn't go so well, but she drove it without ever being behind the wheel of a car. And she accomplished that. Why? Because it was important to her, and she believed in herself enough that she could actually do that, and she did, and she accomplished that. And so I feel like if she didn't believe she could do it, she wouldn't have done it. She would have just gotten a bus pass and depended on our not so great bus system that we have here in our area, and she could have just that wouldn't have been an option. She would have waited till she got residency and became a citizen and then get a driver's license, or whatever the process is. But she would have waited, and then she would have taken a more practical approach to it. But she didn't. She truly believed in herself. She truly, I think really what it was is that she really valued her time. And there's a huge difference in the waste of time that you have when you ride a bus, for example, or just public transportation in general. You waste a lot of time compared to having your own mode of transportation. And it was that higher level of valuing her time that led her to say, I need to take the steps to get my own vehicle, whether I know how to, maneuver to drive it or not. And so I think that if prior to me trying to make a switch or transition from being reactive to proactive, I only did things that I believed I could do. And that was a very narrow a list of things that I truly believed that were for me in my life. Whereas now I'm just like, as I grow, that list is getting longer and longer, and I have more belief in myself and more belief that I can do these things. And I'm not wealthy, I'm not rich, but I have given money sufficient importance in my life enough to pay my bills, to have savings, to have investments, to all of these things that I'm doing, that if you would have asked me 20 years ago if this was even possible, I would have said no, that's for rich people, right? And so I guess part of it, I feel like part of it is how much you believe you can accomplish, how much you're again, I'm a firm believer in you have to provide value to humanity to get value back. And so if my heart was leading me in directions that weren't really providing value for anybody, then I probably wouldn't get back, even if I thought it was valuable. If it wasn't truly making an impact in somebody's life or in many people's lives, then I wasn't going to get value back, whether I knew it or not. So I don't know if that makes sense too. So,
well, let me ask you, Gordon, because what is it that what was the catalyst that made you decide to make that change and change your relationship with finances? What was it? What clicked in you that made, hey, I gotta change this? What happened?
I actually met a really good friend of mine. His name is Carlos Salgado. He is a mentor of mine. He is my financial advisor. He is a business partner of mine. And it was just by chance that I met him through a mutual friend, and he started teaching about me about money. But he was I don't know if you guys are familiar with the blue ocean red ocean theory. The red ocean would be a market where everything has to do with competition, limited resources, limited, you know, everything's limited. Whereas a blue ocean is a perspective or mindset where anybody can achieve anybody, and there is abundance. There's enough for everybody, and you don't have to step on anybody to grow, and you don't have to bring anybody down to get what you want. There is enough of everything for everybody. And so, you know, I started learning from him, and he had a very realistic but positive approach to money and just abundance in general. Like, it's not always money. Abundance doesn't always manifest in money. It's in, you know, it's in other things. And so that to me really connected. And one of the things that he said to me is a simple thing, but a long time ago he said that if it doesn't serve you, why do it? And so, and that it can be looked at as a selfish thing, but that can also be looked at, you know, it serving my community. If is that gonna do something for me? Oh yeah. I mean, have you ever done anything for anybody and not felt really good about this thing that you were able to help somebody else with? And so the best way to do for you is to really to do for somebody else, I think. And so that kind of made a switch. I met him in around 2015, and prior to that, I had had a couple business failures, and my planned future was to be a graphic artist and have a design studio. And we actually got really close, and we actually opened up a shop and had everything, and that fell through in 2008. And so I was kind of on a downward angle when I met him, and it was like, you know, like I was going to be a hacker at that point. I was like, forget the world, forget the government, forget the banks. I was going to be a hacker because that was the only way to get back, and that wasn't serving me. It wasn't serving anybody. And so I was lucky enough to meet him and just kind of make a switch. And it's been an evolution. You don't just switch, right? It's like, oh, really? There's another way to look at it. I don't know. That doesn't seem right. I'll try a little bit. Okay, all right. And then, you know, little by little, you start believing that making that switch is truly going to benefit you, serve you, take care of your family, and that's kind of how that came about, I guess you could say.
Okay. I'm gonna ask this, flip the same thing and ask you, Benji, because it seems like we kind of flipped around and went to finances, and when it has actually had significant when there was a significant change in our lives or our mindset with our finances. I want to go back and just kind of add on myself. When I was married previously, I had 3 daughters, and I was going through a divorce with my wife, and I did not have that much money at all. I mean, I had just enough gas money to get me back, and I had a motorcycle, thank God. Didn't take much to fill up the tank, but you know, I had to budget out my gas getting to and from. And I mean, man, real talk, man. At one point, I was only like surviving off like $400 a pay period. You know, with 3 children and a mortgage and trying to, you know, get things going. And it was like I was only eating at work. You know, when I got to work, that was when I would eat. And then my days off, I was like, why am I so hungry? I'm like, oh, because I would usually be eating in the lunchroom. You know, there was a point where I'm like, I do not want to be like this forever. I have to make some changes. And that was a time for me. That was early 2000s where I started making some changes, putting more money into my 401k when I did have the opportunities, and started working overtime and throwing that money into that pot. And we had TSP, thrift savings plan, we had, and they match your contribution. So I was like, okay, I gotta make it. I gotta make it. So I was throwing that money in there, trying to get that overtime in it, and that was my own way with handling finances. So I want to ask the same thing to you, Benji. Was there a period in time where you ran into an incident, or is there someone that you knew that showed you the way and put you on a path to your financial success or whatever?
Um, I think it's a little different, like where that you guys have family early, right? I never had that. I was married, but I was always just me, right? Me and my ex or my companies and things like that. So I'm always able to kind of navigate that. But don't get me wrong, I when I was younger, when I was starting out, you go to happy hours to eat food, right? That's what we normally do. You eat one meals a day. You go to work, you eat Roman noodle at work. I mean, we've done that all the time. And then when I used to work for Fidelity, they always give us a free free number and things like that. You call Domino's and stuff, foods just show up, and you go, hey, I'm working this weekend. I'm like, no, we just went there to get some food. So that was part of the early days. As I got older, I was more like, let's grow and grow and grow and grow, and I take risks, and trust me, I went from this, like high level to low level quick. It's just the tolerance you got to do, right? But each time I go down, I come back bigger, stronger, and things like that. I'm not that kind of person like that. But what would go back to the life of purpose? I was living a life of indulgence. So, for example, we talk about the 12 scholarship for next year. Well, when COVID happened, I pretty much live in a hotel. I live at the Marriott for like 18 months.
Wow.
That's $42,000. How many foreign people I can bring onto the forum if I just stay at La Quinta Inn instead of the Marriott in Four Seasons? That's the life of indulgence, of life of purpose, right? I can see now what my purpose is with for you and people here. You guys talk about, you know, teaching people different skill set. I'm here to help you reach those people through finances, through advertising, to the people I know. Like Gordon have a great line about this. My ex still have a very negative relationship with money.
Hmm.
She came from she came from a country club life, and she still have a negative I can give her 4 or 5 thousand, it'd be gone in a weekend. I gave her 3,000 the other day. It was gone like within like a day and a half. Where like I give this to her son, David, is like he's my connect. I can give him $40. He'll live off that for a month. I'm like, how do you live on $40 on a month? Which he does, and then you guys' mom can live off $4,000 in a weekend. So I mean, that's the thing about money, right? So teaching young people to be positive of money is a big deal, because I grew up the same way, where money's all evil and all this stuff. Not necessarily. Just like gun is not evil. It's how you use the gun. Because if you need to hunt something in Texas, you better have a gun to hunt. It's like you and that wild boar. You're not going to win against that wild boar. I promise you that. So that's kind of where I'm at. But my best friend is like you and Gordon. He is the king of saving money. He's the defense of saving money, right? And and it's like I am the offense of making money. But ultimately, we come out about the same. His saving is a little bit more than mine, but ultimately it's about the same. Where that it took him less to grow his money because he leveraged 401ks, everything. Where that I invest in building companies and making money, right? So he tend to hit the single. I tend to hit the home run, but I struck out a lot though. You know that, right? It's like if you're a big hitter, you're gonna strike out a lot. But once in a while, I hit a few big ones.
Awesome, 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 awesome. I think I think with that being said, there's to me this adds on with that, since we're talking about money. Um, there was a book that I read, and I think it was Chuck Swindoll. It's called Sex, Communication, and Money. And I think I was 18 or 19 years old when I read that book. And that one kind of set me on a path, because those are the three things in life and in a relationship that if you don't, if they're not out of whack, if one of them is out of whack, it has your partner has a tendency to start looking other places to get that sex, the communication, or the money. And if you did not keep that balance going in there right, and if you didn't handle it right, then you have problems. Because if I don't communicate with you that I don't like what you're doing, and I don't communicate with you that this is happening or that's getting on my nerves, then I start building up resentment. Or if she has problems with spending money and we don't have that much money, or the sex, I can't explain what it is that I just don't like having sex with you. If I can't explain these things, or vice versa from her to me, then there's a problem. And those are those things when you talk about looking and fixing your individual self. You got to look at yourself first before I start reaching out and saying something to somebody else. Before I start sitting back and saying your sex is wrong, or your communication is wrong, or your finances are messed up, I got to look at my contributions to that same problem itself. And that's a big thing for me, in particular what we're talking about today, and what we're talking about, period, because everything leads into everything. And a lot of it is starting with me right here. And bottom line, when we go back to the whole starting, what the whole purpose of, what does the purpose mean? That whole purpose is me stepping out and doing the best and being the best who I am, to go out there and affect everything else around me. Everything else around me. And if I can't get me right, then I can't go out there and I'm not in a position to tell someone else how to get their stuff right. Now, with that being said, it is like Robin was saying earlier, it's a practice. Every day I might make mistakes. It's a practice. And doctors go out there and make mistakes. He might order up the wrong type of medication today, but then later when he says, you know what, maybe I gave him a little bit too much aspirin. This time I'm gonna go with Excedrin this time versus aspirin or whatever. It's a practice. And these conversations like this gives you to think in certain ways. So you sit back and say, when I got an issue, what was it that Gordon said? He said, blah, blah, blah. During this time right here, blah, that's what he did. And he made this change. Blah, blah, blah had brought up the conversation about the pandemic, because the pandemic to me was a definite tipping point in a lot of people, and particularly in my life, because everything kind of went to a halt. And everybody had to stay in their home and look outside the windows, get really technical about who's bringing me my food, what's up with my mail. My wife and I, we were going through taking your mail and cleaning the mail before we brought into the house, because we didn't know what COVID was doing. All the fear that we had was going. It brought up so much stuff, and we operated out of a different type of a mindset. It became your own little pod where just me and my wife, we went to the commissary, to the store, wearing masks, and we don't want no one else to breathe what we're breathing. And it was such a dynamic time for society that we went through. And these individual things that we're talking about one-on-one, now that the COVID is more like a normal, like a cold nowadays to us almost, we're kind of easing back into who we are, looking at the lessons that we learned during that period and trying to apply those to who we are. So going back and kind of long story short, that whole purpose, that whole life purpose of what it is, it starts with me. It starts with us. It starts with conversations like this, and having those hard conversations. And sometimes, again, heck, just talking about, just even saying the word sex. Having a conversation about sex, having a conversation about money, having a conversation about communication. Like Robin said, I could be the biggest asshole, but I'm giving out money to everybody. I can communicate the best, but I treat my wife like a dog with sex. You know what I'm saying? There is all kinds of different things. I got to look at me, and I also have to be receptive when someone says something. Hey, blah blah blah. You need to check yourself, Sam. What do you mean? I need to check myself. I personally go back and I'll say to myself, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I go back to myself and say, no, why did he say that? There's a reason why he said that. There's a reason why a person was attracted to me and came up and said something. I believe in that, those little things that happen that and we talked about this, Benji, before, with you parking in certain areas and people always seem to gravitate towards wherever you park at. There's a reason for that. There's a reason. I can't call it, and I don't know why, but there's a reason. And it's just up to you to try to find the interpretation in your lifestyle and what you do. Hey, you know, I park here and everybody starts following me. Why is that? I'm charismatic. Could that be it? Maybe someone has to say something. Maybe, I don't know what it is, but that's the way I got to take it. And that's the way I take it.
Yeah. And that, yeah, that's actually dead on. I can take it positive and negatively. And that's something that literally the form has shown me, right? It's like, hey, there is the positive and negative to that. Which one do I choose, right? And that's what it came down to. And how do I turn that energy into a positiveness? That's the key thing. So that's a very, very good lesson. And that's a lesson all my life. But Gordon made a funny joke. It's like, hey, they want to dig my car. Yeah, you can dig my pickup all day long over Texas, man. It's like, it's one of those things. Yeah, that is like, for me, like that kind of material things have so minimum to me. But go back to the financial. Actually, I did have a mentor, Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was the book that changed my perspective in life, right? And so for me, it's always been about offense. But Brian, my best friend, it's always been about defense. And guess who win the Super Bowl? Defense. And that's something that I have to really find that balance in.
Wow. Are you an aggressive money tender?
Oh,
Benji?
good. Oh God, you do not want me to day trade with your money. I will day trade all day long because I'm good at it. But the house always win. It's just like Vegas. At one point, you go in too deep and they'll win. So I stopped doing that. So,
So Gordon, how about you? Do you feel like are you an aggressive money tender, or are you more passive?
In general, I would say I'm more passive, but I think when I really believe in something, there's nothing that's going to stop me from attaining it or acquiring it or achieving it. And so if it takes an amount of funds that I normally would kind of be hesitant about, if it's something that I really believe in, I don't mind paying extra. I don't mind investing extra and seeing it through till it's accomplished, because until I went through with it 100%, I can't say what the results would have been. I can only say I didn't go for it, and that yields zero results every single time. But it's kind of it's following my heart, right? If I see something that I want to invest in and I think that it's not really going to make a difference in anybody's life, then I probably would hold back. But if there's something that it's going to cost a lot or take a huge amount of investment, but it's really going to make a difference, I'm all in, and I'm willing to take that risk. So it just depends.
I want to pivot with add into what you say and piggyback on what you said. We were having a conversation one time, and I'm trying to think of where we were at, Gordon, but you brought something up that I thought was an amazing point. We were discussing finances, and you said to the person, I don't discuss finances unless I've discussed it with my wife at this time. I don't jump into anything unless I discuss it with my wife. And I just was like, get it, Gordon. Yes, because those are some things that, it's more than just you. It's more than just you, and it affects your whole family. So I just want to say that because I think it was during one of the Landmark Forum things. They were asking about, come on in, just sign up. And you were like, hey, you wake your wife up. And you're like, she's got to sleep. And, I don't discuss things without discussing with my wife. And that just was so perfect, and it was just perfect. And like you said, and in a relationship, I think it's an important thing to sit back there and say, when you're a single person, you can jump out and do whatever you want. But when you got someone else and a family depending on you, you got to change things up a little bit. And I think in accordance with what we were talking about, being able to sit back there and say and call it out before it gets out of hand. I don't want to step over anyone's toes, but I don't do anything unless my wife is involved. You know, it's great. It's actually
Yeah,
great.
that conversation got a little aggressive, and I had to just level out and say, okay, how do I respond without this getting? And so it was what it was, you know. I think that reminded me of another thing that my mentor taught me, is that cost is only an issue in the absence of value. And so if I truly saw the Landmark program as being something that I was really, the timing was right and I was truly going to benefit from it, it wouldn't bother me to wait a day or two, talk to my wife, and pay more than getting that because they were offering some kind of a discount on that day.
Right.
It wouldn't be an issue. And it wouldn't be an issue waiting a day or two and then signing up later and paying more if I truly was going to get value out of it. And so that's what I thought of in that moment. I said, if cost is an issue in my mind, if I'm hesitant about cost, then the value isn't there 100%, if that makes sense. And so when the value's there, nobody's worried about costs, right? And so that was something that I thought about as well. But yeah, some households manage their money, the couple manages their money separately, and some households manage it together. And we've had her and I have gone through some serious up and downs financially, and we've had really, really long talks and some bumps, scrapes, and bruises along the way in those talks. And we got to a point where this is how it needs to happen. At a certain point, it needs to be this way. And if I disrespect that or not follow it at any point, then what were all those cuts and bruises for? It was for nothing. And so a hard sale is not going to stop me from managing my family the way that I do.
There you go. All right, cool. Any last comments? Our hours came and went already. Anybody got any comments about what's going on, what was said? I think that this was a great conversation. And I hope that everybody got something out of that. We picked up something from each of us, something that we can hopefully apply to our lives and maybe even pass on to someone else when we discuss this conversation again.
For sure.
Okay. Well, all right, guys. Well, go ahead. You have something to say, Gordon?
No, I was going to say, I thought it was interesting that we talked about purpose, but we automatically diverted to financial, money and things like that. And I think that has a lot to do with when we're doing things, we're hoping for something in return. And that's human nature, I think, or at least the evolved human nature as far as where society is today. And I think that's interesting that it quickly got into a talk about money. And I think that just has to do with, the life that we create, through the work that we do, regardless of whether money's involved, we're creating a life for ourselves through the work that we do. And it was just interesting to me.
Yeah, I can add to that. You actually helped me kind of clarify what is my life purpose is. It's not so much teaching people money, in being able to show people where to get the resources. For example, if you need help with money, go talk to my friend Gordon. If you struggle with like so-and-so, go to the Landmark Forum. If you can't pay for it, I'll pay for it. That's really what it is, my life purpose is, because I have the access to all those things. But the thing is, like Samuel said, I'm not here to rescue. When you're ready, I'm here, and I have to be ready for whoever show up. But my job is to promote whatever teaching your wisdom, your sage is, and say, hey, I ran into this issue. I know somebody you can talk to. Go talk to Samuel. He's a military. He's disciplined. He talk about that all the time, and talk about the balance between the physical world and spirituality world. That's why you and I connect, because the form was so physical, it's like so earthly, right?
Your mic.
Yeah, we're more than that. So that was the whole idea. But really, the idea now, I understand where our role are. Just like every one of us have a role, like on a basketball team. So these are kind of things I'm kind of, oh, thank you. I now understand what my role is for each and everyone here. But ultimately, though, we're here to serve one another. We're here to, we're here to be add value to one another, and things like that. But I follow my heart. I'm sorry. I like it. I love my heart. I love my heart.
I can't even do it right.
That's right.
Hey, but you know what though, Benji? Real talk. There's not a problem with that. I was talking with someone, Gordon. It was just yesterday. I think we were talking about being sensitive, about guys being sensitive. Was that the conversation we had yesterday? There was not. I used to have a problem with that. But as I grew up and got bigger, I'm 6'3" now. Half of guys, I can be talking sensitive as I want. They're not gonna put their hands on me, And the thing is this: a lot of times, some people they need to see that there are people who actually feel compassion. They need to understand that there are people who feel a certain way. And you sit back and say, "Hey, man, no, that's not cool. I'm cool. I don't want to offend nobody." They're like, "Wait a minute, you have an opportunity to shut somebody down and you don't." That's where the practice comes in. That's where the practice comes in. You're putting that good energy out there, that karma. I believe in karma. I really believe in karma, and I believe you put out something and it comes back to you. And a lot of people don't, but it's a big thing for me. And I believe, like we mentioned, each of us, there's a spirit in each of us. And when you're working on yourself on things, you understand there's a bigger picture than yourself. Something a whole lot bigger than us.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. We're here to discuss this and talk about these things and talk about those sensitive things that a lot of people don't talk about. It's a safe space, right?
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
So,
But I think the final conclusion is really there's a bigger thing outside us. We're living outside bigger thing outside us. And that was the whole focus is like, there's more to life than just Benji, Samuel, Gordon. There's more to that, So together we are more. Exactly.
Here we go. Way to end it. All right, guys. Good one in the books right now for us. So we will end this one now, and I will see you guys next week. Let's get that schedule together.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Take care.
Guys.